James Elliott leads them away as they head towards Pagel's corner for the first time. James Elliott, Chris Pagel right behind him. Hayden Turner would be the next one, and then Dan Cook. Dan Henshaw tucked in there. The one high on the racetrack is that of Darren Reed. Next behind them is Neil Caldoulis, and Joel Berkeley has got car 2 mobile. Back behind him, it's Alan Price. Race leader at the moment is James Elliott through the hairpin corner. And up the zinc straight away he goes over Chris Pagel, Hayden Turner. Dan Cook would be the next one, and right on his hammer is Dan Henshaw. That's the way they go around Pagel's corner and down the back chute one more time. Neil Caldoulis would be in the next position. Darren Reed up the zinc straight away one more time for James Elliott. Chris Pagel still close enough. Back behind him, Hayden Turner. Bit of a gap, then goes back to Dan Cook, who's coming under a lot of pressure from Dan Henshaw. Henshaw has a look down the inside. Dan Cook closes that door on him, lets it drift out towards the concrete, and Henshaw back then to Neil Caldoulis, Joel Berkeley. Next one behind would be Darren Reed, and the car 9 is still out there of Alan Price. Through the hairpin one more time for our race leader, James Elliott, who's got Chris Pagel for company now. Hayden Turner back there in 3. Still a battle royal for positions 4 and 5 between the two Dans. Dan Cook, Dan Henshaw into the hairpin corner. Lap car coming up. That's Alan Price. James Elliott, Chris Pagel, Hayden Turner into Pagel's corner. Remember, the 9 car, Alan Price, does not have to move out of the way. Hold his line. Into the hairpin goes our race leader. Drifts it high on the racetrack to drive around the outside of the lap car. Chris Pagel goes with him, so does Hayden Turner. No change in the order back then to Dan Cook and Dan Henshaw as they go round the Pagel's corner into the hairpin corner one more time. And it is still James Elliott coming under a lot of pressure from Chris Pagel, Hayden Turner, Dan Cook, Dan Henshaw, Neil Caldoulis. The front 3 around the top corner they go, and down the back straight away. It's still James Elliott to the better of Chris Pagel. Hayden Turner, nose to tail, the 3 of them. Turner has a look up the inside this time. Dan Cook would be the next one. Then Dan Henshaw, Neil Caldoulis. Race leaders go down the back chute. Still nothing between them. James Elliott, Chris Pagel, Hayden Turner through the hairpin. Up the zinc straight away they go. And under the tower, half the race distance completed. James Elliott coming under enormous pressure from Chris Pagel, who gave him a little bump in the back. Washed off the pace a little. Hayden Turner tried to get involved. Through the hairpin one more time. James Elliott up the zinc straight away he goes, and under the tower. James Elliott, Chris Pagel, Hayden Turner. Dan Cook is a distant 4th. Here comes Chris Pagel down the inside this time. Elliott shuts the door through the hairpin, but he won't be able to accelerate up the hill. Yes, he can. Holds on to the lead as they head towards Pagel's corner once again. James Elliott fights off the Chris Pagel attack down the back straight away. Hayden Turner still there into the hairpin. It's still James Elliott, Chris Pagel down the inside again. Changes direction. Hayden Turner involved. Around the top corner again, car 9. Alan Price is in front of them as they come down into the hairpin corner. It is still James Elliott up the zinc straight away. Chris Pagel, Hayden Turner, Dan Cook and Dan Henshaw. Around the outside of Alan Price goes their race leader, and that is James Elliott. Chris Pagel has a look down the outside this time. Not there. Tries to stick on the outside. Elliott lets it drift, cuts him off, and that allows Hayden Turner up the inside. side by side, as the car in front of them, the 17 of Darren Reed, makes all sorts of funny noises and pulls out of the way into the hairpin turn once again. James Elliott, Chris Pagel again, has a little look up the inside. 4 laps remaining, gets out of shape. Hayden Turner again tries to tuck his nose underneath. Dan Cook is slowly closing that gap. Dan Henshaw's with him into the hairpin corner. James Elliott, Chris Pagel, Hayden Turner up the inside. Under the tower they go. Dan Cook, Dan Henshaw around the top corner. James Elliott, he's got to keep it on line. Chris Pagel tries to force his way underneath. It doesn't work. Through the hairpin corner one more time and up the zinc straight away. It's still James Elliott. The white flag will be out. They're 2 laps from home. James Elliott around the top corner. Pagel has a look. He's almost level. Side by side into the hairpin. He's got him this time as James Elliott gets all crossed up. Hayden Turner cleans him up. White flag out. 1 to go. Chris Pagel around Pagel's corner. James Elliott. Hayden Turner goes a little high. Dan Cook is right there. Dan Henshaw. Chris Pagel's won it. Takes the checkered flag. James Elliott, Hayden Turner, Dan Cook, Dan Henshaw, Neil Caldoulis, and Alan Price to complete the journey. Brilliant feature race, folks. Put your hands together for each and every one of them. And I would imagine that James Elliott's not happy. Chris Pagel wins the feature race. We'll move the microphone away from that car. Yes, right, folks, yeah, put your hands together. 2 brilliant feature finals we've had so far tonight. And the National 4 Queensland title is now up for grabs.